It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantha Tracks TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine. We're back, and even with a small blip before the show started, a little bit late on the air due to a power cut, so if you lose us again, I do apologise. But we're back after an extra long break, and we've got lots to discuss, so let's get straight on with the show. And first up, we're going to be talking all about Disney purchasing Lucasfilm. It's been 11 years, and we'll be going through the good and the bad. We're going to be saying hello to our latest honorary member, Anthony Daniels, checking out Columbia's Skywalker pilot collection. We'll be looking at Sideshow Collectibles, Grand Inquisitor from Hot Toys. And also in the act is Ahsoka with Grand Admiral Thrawn in a 3 dimensions bust. And last but not least, we'll be discussing the last, best and final offer made from the studios to SAG-AFTRA. Are we on the verge of the strikes being over, and what will that mean? To discuss this and much, much more from FanthaTracks.com and Making Tracks, Mr. Mark Mulcaster. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well. It's been a while.
It's been far too long.
Yes.
Far too long.
Yeah.
Making Tracks has been on the air, though. Tell us what's been happening, what is happening, what can they check out in this week's show?
So this week's show, I believe it was Mark chatting to Carl Newman about his amazing new documentary, which is out for Star Wars Holiday Special. So he flew solo for that. But hopefully we're going to be back in front of the microphones maybe tomorrow or Tuesday, and we can get episodes in the bag. So yeah, we just wrapped up our Ahsoka reaction chat, so we're now kind of on hiatus until the next series comes out, whatever and what.
Clearer than I am, just breaking up there. I think I'm having slight audio problems. It could be off the back of this power cut I've just had, but we'll struggle on, hopefully, and it'll
Let's try.
Come through fine. Yeah, so Making Tracks, busy as always, events as always as well. MCM, was it last week for yourself?
MCM London, we didn't attend that, but we will be at, so that's the Rebel Legion, will be at MCM Birmingham, which is like the first weekend of December, so they've shunted it back a couple of weeks, because normally kind of like in the middle of November. Now it's first week of December, so yeah, that's up in the NEC for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that's going to be fun. That'll be the last big blowout, I think, before Christmas, so looking forward to that one.
Yeah, let's get stuck into this week's news. Slower week on the news front. Obviously strikes have been affecting everything, so it's been quite good having a little hiatus of this show over the past month, because there's not been too much to discuss with Ahsoka finalising. But we hit a landmark this past week. It's 11 years to the day on the 31st October that Disney announced that they were entering into final negotiations to purchase Lucasfilm. The deal concluded in the December of that year for just over $4 billion for Mr. Lucas as a sole owner of Lucasfilm. It's been a mixed bag, I think it would be fair to say that 11 years there's been good things, bad things, things that indifferent. Wondered if we can go through some of them with you. And I think maybe the first thing that happened, somewhat controversial, was the closure of LucasArts, the sort of computer division of Lucasfilm. And I'm not sure if it's something Star Wars gaming's ever quite recovered from. They've entered into a partnership with EA and some mobile companies as well. But an element of Star Wars and gaming history kind of lost there with the closure of LucasArts. And that was kind of the first big decision that came out of the deal. And that was made really early on, I think.
Yeah, that was right. That was like, I think, other than like the film announcement, the movie every year. That was probably the big first news and the first real kind of, I think, like Disney shake-up that we had. We then obviously had like the animation shake-up and stuff as well. But yeah, the LucasArts one was a shame. I mean, obviously for somebody who kind of grew up playing X-Wing and Monkey Island and all these other games and stuff, it was kind of like a real shock. Because now, 11 years later, we started to see some of those games get re-released and also remastered. So Dark Forces, that's coming out soon.
February.
So really looking forward to that. And that's interesting because obviously that's basically by a publisher that doesn't exist, but I'm sure Lucasfilm and Disney will be making their money off of those downloads for sure. So yeah, and I mean the whole EA kind of partnership, you're right, mixed bag. Jedi Survivor, Matt's great. Star Wars Squadron's not quite so as strong as I think we were all hoping at the time. And Battlefront and that I think was pretty decent, but it wasn't necessarily games that were the issues. I think it was just the monetization of how the transition in the gaming kind of like industry to this kind of.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder if would still make the same decision today, whether it would shelf LucasArts on the basis of the gaming industry is blown up so huge. It now competes with the movie industry. There's no doubt about that in terms of its financial might and the investment into projects. And the rumor won't go away that actually EA is a target for Disney to purchase. It's the kind of one medium that Disney really doesn't have its foot in the door. And I wonder if it's a decision that would have changed 11 years on. Could they have built something with LucasArts, or was it the backbones maybe just weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, kind of like, I'm just trying to think, cast my mind back 11 years, really, what, where was LucasArts? What were they doing? They weren't really putting out many games.
No,
and that's
there'd been a lot of cancelled projects. 1313 was kind of the big thing and kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
It was kind of like it became kind of like an experimental front for ILM in some ways. And
yeah,
towards
I suppose in some respects, some of it's kind of like morphed into maybe the X Lab stuff with virtual reality and stuff, which has been pretty cool. But even that, again, like VR hasn't probably as kind of taken off in the same way as I think the industry was hoping. It's it's still in its early days and that, but yeah. I will definitely agree with Anakin. Battlefront 3 would be good. It'd be nice to kind of tie up that series, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned the films. That was the first big announcement. It became part of the announcement on the 31st October that they'd be starting with a new trilogy. Didn't have a name attached to it, but I think it was December that year, J. Abrams contracted to do the first one and to be producing the following two, I think it was announced. Star Wars films, they're Disney in 11 years. Probably some point. And Solo, other things like the sequel trilogy, somewhat of a disappointment. And maybe a little bit of it from the outside looking in, disorganisation as to what they want to do and how they're going to do it and who they're going to work with. Although sometimes the extra scrutiny on Star Wars kind of escalates that kind of thinking as well, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in that. Yeah, it's very much, I think, because I think Lucasfilm is so under the microscope, that and even probably more so than say like Marvel. any kind of like changes and any developmental changes that happen just in the pure nature of post-production, writers come in and out and directors do kind of come on and off of projects. I think it's, the media is very quick to hop on it and either criticize Kathleen Kennedy or just, directors mentioned and everything, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, the sequel trilogy, I think it will depend on your demographic. I think it depends on your age, really, as to how it, if it was things, now we're 20 plus years from a prequel trilogy. That's kind of had a nostalgia kick. 20 years time, I'm going to be like 60 odd. Will we have a similar kind of thing, or even 10 years time? That's a thing. So, but what else can you do? If they did a requel rather than a reboot, which I think is good, So yeah, but with that has some issues anyway. So
Yeah.
But
Something we didn't even envision, I don't think, 11 years ago was Star Wars TV. Really wasn't on the landscape. We kind of maybe thought they might do something for ABC. Disney Plus wasn't a thought, I don't think, back in 2012. So that's kind of blown up out everywhere, and I think in the large, a success. Perhaps
yeah,
arguably not commercially, but certainly from a story point of view, I think it sort of brought a lot of the fandom that had kind of fallen out a little bit over the sequel trilogy back together again. Certainly through The Mandalorian and Andor were hugely popular.
Yeah, completely. I think they did the right thing with The Mandalorian. It felt very much like Star Wars for everyone, really, very kind of like easy and accessible. And I think really Andor was kind of the best next thing really coming off of that. We've had other attempts which haven't necessarily been quite so successful. Maybe Book of Boba Fett, and Kenobi was okay, but possibly not necessarily as strong as people were hoping it would be. So yeah, it's been a mixed bag. But then again, you look at you think about how many series get churned out on another streaming platform. How many do we talk about week in, week out? Not many, So there's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's just so much content that we weren't expecting, and we're not. We're now at this weird place. Like we get to the end of Ahsoka, and we're kind of like, well, we haven't had a sequel series announcement yet. We haven't had a season 2 announcement. Are we going to get it or are we not? And so I think kind of in some respects we kind of become a little bit spoiled with all the amount of Star Wars that's been coming out quite regularly. So
I definitely think we're going to see a slowdown moving forward. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think you're right. I think the problem is with like both the movies coming out like once every year, and also how fast the series have been coming out. Whilst it's great for the industry, and you can just look around the south of the UK to see how many film studios are expanding or have been developed, and that just to show how important the streaming industry is to the film and TV like production like industry here. However, it starts to feel a bit disposable, and Star Wars has never really felt quite as disposable as it is right now. It's always felt like a big event. It's always been. Even you go back to The Force Awakens, you think about the run up to The Force Awakens, and I don't think, other than possibly The Phantom Menace, it's been a film that's been such anticipated by both the fans and obviously like general cinema goers.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. I think in terms of it's whether Star Wars kind of lost the idea of being an event, and when something new comes out, like a TV series can come out and it just doesn't hit mainstream media, bar the sort of, I was going to say specialist magazines, but be careful how I word it. But the sort of the industry magazines, it doesn't beyond variety, beyond empire. Is it really in? Is that just? I think that's a change in the whole way that we consume media. and that a hit TV show can have 2 million viewers, and it be considered a massive hit. Like Stranger Things doesn't have to have a huge TV audience to have a huge impact and reach. For example, just based on subscriber numbers, it's like a tiny percentage of the UK, for example, will pick up and see that series, and yet it's still be considered a massive hit.
Yeah.
I guess the other areas to wrap up this kind of segment is, I think Disney were probably surprised by ILM and Skywalker Sound. I don't think that was really on their mindset when they were buying Lucasfilm, and I think they've been surprised at how much that's probably generated for them, both in terms of revenue, and I've certainly seen a push on the marketing front to really push the work of Skywalker Sound and ILM in the last year. So I think that was considered a bonus for Disney, and I think they've handled that element of that acquisition really well. And the last segment is probably the segment I know least, which is sort of animation. And they kind of stirred everything kind of up there in that industry, similar to LucasArts. There was a lot of changes there, and probably a slowdown in terms of what they were producing in terms of animation. But they have gone back and effectively completed the Clone Wars, taking those characters into live action as well. So when you look at it on the scale of things, definitely been a lot of changes to animation, but maybe positive.
Oh, yeah, I would think so. Now that we've had, like you said, season 7 of Clone Wars, but also with the Bad Batch as well, that has really propelled a lot of storytelling in that kind of post Old Republic era, kind of the Empire, and that's quite a fascinating kind of like time frame that we've never really been able to explore. So it's been great that they've done that, and like you said, I think it's been, you could say like a celebration about the fact that you've taken a character written and created purely for the Clone Wars in Ahsoka, and you've made her into live action, and she's had a lot of traction, and she's a fan favorite for both, all genders really. So it's not just a thing that female fans kind of gravitate to. So I think it's fantastic. So yeah.
So if you had to sum up the last 11 years in one sentence or more,
Oh.
How do you feel it's done? I think it could have been better, but I don't think it's necessarily been a disaster in the way that some people like to portray. I think they've probably learned a lot in the last 11 years, and I would hope that they don't repeat a lot of what I would consider mistakes. I think they've had to find their feet a little bit with how to manage the fandom a little bit. And they certainly in the last couple of years seem to be doing that a little bit better. And the big success or failure for the whole thing's probably going to be shown in the next few films, I think, and whether they land them in a manner that they can bring the fandom with them.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I guess if you were to kind of give them like a school report, I think you're probably looking at maybe like a B+, I think, could do better. But on the whole, I mean, it all depends on who you talk to. Like if you talk to positive fans, then everything's great. And then if you talk to hypercritical fans, everything's crap. And Kathleen Kennedy should have gone years ago. But I would think that, I mean, it's like anything. You can't have successes all the time because that's just the nature of like the creative storytelling process. And not everything's going to land with everybody all the time.
I think you're doing a bad job creatively if you don't have failures, because you're not pushing the envelope then.
Exactly. You're not experimenting, and I think that's the thing. You can play it safe, and I think like some things can be played safe, and I think we saw that a little bit with Ahsoka. Some things felt a little bit safe, but then also other things were kind of like quite experimental. The whole idea of kind of basically taking characters from an animation show that has such a limited remit to then try to push them into the mainstream with very little kind of explanation and backstory for the casual fan. That was, I think, a bit of a gamble, but I think you've got to try it. because I think nothing in Star Wars Vista is going to be irreversible. I think there's as much as we complain about nobody ever seems to die, and if they do die, they don't stay dead for long. But I think that in some respects means that they can kind of walk things back and gives them a chance to pivot. But it's going to be an interesting next 11 years, I reckon. I think that will be, like you said, that will be the when we'll really be able to tell whether or not things are heading the way that we want it to be.
I forgot, and I should have mentioned theme parks, because this is now the new revenue stream, I guess, for Lucasfilm, that existed in some regards because they had Star Tours, I guess. But we've now got Galaxy's Edge, Star Wars Land, whatever you would call it, as part of Disney. In the last month I've been missing, I managed to go out there and spend a day in Florida, Galaxy's Edge there. New Star Wars, for me, I enjoyed it, but it felt incomplete. It was lacking something, and I'd been to Universal the day before and did Harry Potter and all that kind of thing, but Harry Potter was kind of, let's call that the focus, because that's maybe the equivalent of Star Wars land out there. They do it incredibly well because they don't go for this immersive experience, but they've got enough going on, and they do have characters that sort of within the Harry Potter area, in terms of they've got like a little stage performance kind of area and whatnot. But they do it so well in terms of you arrive on the train, the way that it's compact and it's built at height and scale makes you feel quite immersed in part of it. The rides are all good. As I say, they've got little performance kind of areas as well, and they're selling food items and drinks that are equivalent to what they're doing in Star Wars. And they've got things like the bank where you can change your money and all that kind of thing. So they've got lots of different things going on. So that's, I guess, the competitor for Galaxy's Edge. And I just felt that Galaxy's Edge was so spacious that you kind of lose that element of where it's kind of confined within the Harry Potter element. That you don't necessarily feel part of it until you're in the sort of market area of Galaxy's Edge and it's more confined and it starts to feel a little bit more Star Wars. And I don't think they do very well in terms of, like the Falcon, that you should be walking around and see that and it should blow your mind. But just the way that they've got positioned and laid out, they kind of lose that kind of element. So whilst I was impressed in the individual elements, I didn't think it pulled together perfectly.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because they're future-proofing and leaving large areas to be developed later, which is kind of what I think they probably are doing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That was kind of my take on it. Incredibly successful, it appears, in terms of the number of people attending and being part of it. Your kind of thoughts on Disney theme parks and Lucasfilm?
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been out to Galaxy's Edge yet. I mean, it's on the list of things to do. But I have. I mean, God, I went to Universal. Where I think pretty much about what it would have been. Well, it was on my honeymoon, so it's about 11 plus 12 years ago, and I think they must have literally just opened up a Harry Potter world, or at least the first incarnation of it. And it I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. It felt like a more typical kind of theme park world. It didn't necessarily feel like that immersive. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing Galaxy's Edge. I mean, it's difficult now because I think that so many people are. And Claire's just back, so Claire should kind of like chime in on this, really. But like so many people kind of plaster social media and all that with like photos of Galaxy's Edge. I feel like on some level I've kind of seen it all, but I think I probably haven't seen anything really until actually
you've been there and experienced it. Yeah, I think that's
exactly.
fair. Definitely, Harry Potter 11 years ago, completely different to what Harry Potter is now.
Yeah,
and
I
probably
bet.
improved 10 times over since then, without having done significantly too much more other than improving the overall experience. So definitely I think Galaxy's Edge has got scope to improve, and I came up with a suggestion. I think it's a great idea, even though it's my own, is you take the idea of the Cars ride from California and you bring that over to Florida. drop that in Galaxy's Edge, and you turn it into pod racers, and you've got an immediate,
Absolutely.
simple, easy ride, fits, and it just adds something else to the park. And there's loads of things.
Yeah.
I noticed that the day after I left, they announced a little sort of autonomous droids. And I think they waited until after I left, because as Mr. Newballs just pointed out, I wanted to kick them. I would have kicked them, definitely. But yeah,
but you know, let's make sure that we kind of lay our cards on the table here. Were the bins better at Galaxy's Edge or at Harry Potter World?
definitely better in Galaxy's Edge.
Well, that's all right.
That's what it's all about. It's all about the bins. But yeah, it's I think I'll agree. We'll call it B plus. I think on the Disney acquisition so far, because I'll be honest. I was nervous when they bought it because I'm not. I think it's probably true for a lot of people. We're not as immersed in the whole Disney story as our American counterparts, and so there's a little bit of nervousness when Disney bought it as to what would they do with it. And I think they must have handled it okay. And I think where they've gone wrong, it's probably a learning curve for them. And so yeah, B plus I think's a fair assessment.
Awesome.
Next up in the news front, some news for Fantha Tracks itself. This past week we inducted our second honorary member, Mr. Anthony Daniels, C3PO himself, the different productions as well. So welcome to the Fantha Tracks membership, Mr. Daniels. And Mr. Mulcaster, you had to wait a long time to get your shirt as well, didn't you?
Wait a long time. Yeah, I think I was risking like Anthony Daniels getting inducted before me. So
that would be terrible. So he's now an honorary member.
As long as he doesn't auction the shirt off, like a couple of days' time, you'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll let him off. Mr. Newell pointing out that all the droids were at Disneyland, so the I always get the difference between Disneyland and Disney World completely wrong. It's far too easy a comparison for me, but they weren't in Florida. They kept them well away from me. Droids. Anthony Daniels. That was. They always pick the controversial picks. I think it's the first inductee was Kathleen Kennedy, and second inductee, the guy that portrays a droid. I hate droids. But top bloke and Anthony Daniels, and I think he has Star Wars and him go together perfectly. And I think just even seeing him in the latest series, Ahsoka, he just turns up for one scene, he kind of blows up the fandom again, doesn't he?
Yeah, just steals it. Yeah.
Yep. Next news item I picked specifically for yourself because when this came up in the news this week, I was kind of like, this has got like quite a niche market. The Skywalker pilot collection. Who's buying these? And of course, yourself is probably one of the target markets.
Yeah, I'd think so. Funnily enough, actually, me and some of the other Rebel Legion pilot judges were mulling over all this stuff because we know what will happen. The moment this stuff gets released, somebody will want to try and clear it with the club, and so it's I did
wonder that because when you've got the Columbia badge on there on everything, haven't you really? So
yeah, exactly. I mean, but the thing is, it's like the price. The price point is quite high, and we are not shy about asking people to modify costumes and stuff to meet the requirements of the club.
Yep.
So, it's whether or not you're feeling brave enough to modify a $500 suit or something is one thing, So, but I mean, they're cool, and let's be fair. Well, actually, they're probably quite warm. But if you get lost out on the tundras of Hoth or Finth or something like that, you should be found pretty easy because they do look pretty bright. Some of this stuff.
They do. I was just speaking with Mr. Newbold earlier today because we're going to Finth in February.
Yeah,
and. This kind of ski suit would do nicely, but not at that price point. I don't think for me. I'll go for the one in the one in the local shop. But Claire, she's a big skier. She's got her eyes on one. And Mr. Newbold is putting out, you couldn't wear this in the summer as well. It's definitely winter gear. They have got other nice jackets and kind of things in the range. Again, the price points feels high for me.
I mean, do you know what? It's it all depends, doesn't it? Really. I mean, for some people,
it's the nature of the gear. I think if you're a skier and you're using this kind of stuff and you're in that kind of environment on a regular basis, you're the target market, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. They've got some really nice kind of attentions to details. You've got kind of like your rank badges on there, and I mean, I would think like even most casual Star Wars fan would be able to kind of pick up like the cues and that. And I know there's some like nice little kind of hidden touches and stuff with X-wing schematics and pocket folds and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So. Yeah, I mean, the goggles, I mean...
The goggles are lovely, but I'd go for the 20 buck goggles myself for the one time every 10 years that I'll visit Fantha, maybe.
That's it. I mean, but, I mean, I think it kind of comes down to the fact that, we know with Columbia, the quality of the production is there. The jackets that they put out before are always definitely. Very... like desirable and tend to go very quickly. So, I mean, are we? Do you know if this is like a regular line, or is this going to be something that's going to be relatively limited?
I think it's going to be a regular line. The only deals I had was it launches 1st of December, so I think it's going to be up there. Some of the items, if we go back, the big ski suit was available online only, which makes me think they're probably making them to order.
Well, this is it, because like really, I guess you want something that's going to be pretty well fitted in some respects. You want to have movement, but you don't want it to be too baggy. You don't want it to be too tight. So I guess a small, medium, and large generic sizing is probably not going to cut it. Yeah. So I mean, this one here, the lightweight jacket, that's probably that looks pretty good. I mean, and to be fair. I can't remember how much you can get a snowspeeder jacket from Galaxy's Edge for, but I think it's probably, maybe $100, $150. So you're not looking at too different in terms of a price amount. So,
and you've got little pullovers as well. The one that caught my kind of eye was like the long sleeve shirt, purely because if you know me from social media, that my avatar has been that looks. Macquarie painting from Hoth has been for the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, this one as well. I think this would be probably my take as well. I think I'd grab that one. Although I do have a tendency to kind of like drop chocolate and stuff down me, so white probably is a bit risky. I mean, maybe if I did a Dagobah design, it'd be all right, So
and I kind of like this as well. I need a convention bag, and I kind of like this. But just the branding of Columbia kind of takes it a little bit away from me.
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether or not it's something that you could maybe pick off, or you could even stick another pack. Maybe you would need to do a Fantha Tracks.
That's what
rectangular
we need, something on there. But yeah, so there is nice stuff in there that appeals to me. As Claire's pointed out in the chat as well, that the price points are not outlandish for high-end ski suits either.
No.
So people who are in this game will react much more favourably, I think, than perhaps I do. And a nice ball cap as well to wrap things up on that front as well. So a lot of really nice stuff in the range. I think people who are skiers and going to be using this kind of gear on a regular basis would have no problem picking these kind of items up, I think. Heading on straight on to the next news item. And something a lot more people will be picking up, I imagine, in the collectible figure range from Hot Toys, the Grand Inquisitor. Obviously, this one is based on the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, but the Inquisitor himself and the look of the Inquisitor as portrayed here has become somewhat iconic across quite a number of mediums, so it's got a wider range, I think, than just fans of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't really go wrong with Sideshow and Hot Toys, really. To be fair, and that looks cool. Are we to be led to believe that those lightsaber blades light up, or is that just, do you reckon, artistic
Well, I
interpretation?
kind of feels like they do based on that. I would be expecting them to light up and think it'd be really quite cool.
Yeah,
Based on the promotion for it, someone in the comments may know better than I do, but yeah, I think it would be cool if it did. Um,
yeah,
Really strange price point at £221.31. So I'm assuming that is based off of someone converting the US dollar price. I think that'll get rounded quite happily in some of the stores in this country.
yeah. I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably up as well.
yeah.
So 225, I think.
You've got quite a few very nice figures in the background there. I've seen the Boba Fett. I'm seeing the Maul. I'm seeing the
Yeah.
um, Rebel Pilot as well. Is it the kind of thing that you'd be looking to add to the
Yeah,
collection?
I mean, as you can start to see, the problem is with this stuff is that, I mean, especially those Mythos statues are quite large. So like the bases take up a lot of kind of real estate for display. Whereas, I've started to lean more towards like the mini busts, because you a few kind of like 12-inch or 1/16 scale. They're kind of around the collection and that. So I would definitely probably consider that. I mean, I think it's all down to like what you go for. If you're a focused collector, like collecting Sith and Dark Side, or I tend to just try and pick up one or two items from each series. I'd have to see if they did maybe a Kenobi or a Reaver or something like that first before maybe the Grand Inquisitor. But you never know. If I see him, I might just buy him.
Yeah.
Stick to plastic. You know.
Next up on discussions is another Legends character and Grand Admiral Thrawn, although he's now in canon, obviously in the cartoons and Ahsoka as well. This is a 3 dimensions bust of from the live action show Ahsoka, priced $175, limited to 1,000 pieces and available pretty much everywhere. Really great look in terms of how he looks in Ahsoka. My only take on it is I don't know if that's how I want Thrawn to look. As stupid as that sounds, that's how he looks in the TV show. It's not in my mind my take of what Thrawn looks like, and so I don't know if I would want that version of Thrawn on my bookshelf.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there. I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing is about these 3-dimensional busts that they've done, and they've done quite a few of them, but they do this really nice kind of kind of setup with the base being like a ship or something like that, and I really like how they kind of tie that into the characters and stuff. But you are right. I mean, I think the actual physical look of Thrawn more than anything was probably the most controversial, or at least the most argued about thing to do with Ahsoka, one of them. And so I suppose it all depends upon whether or not you want Papa Smurf or something staring at you from your Star Wars collection room. So it's difficult. I mean, because like you think every single Star Wars Thrawn novel's got a artistic interpretation of him, but and he all looks similar, but there's probably differences when he looks different in Rebels. So it's like
I don't know if is it because we've had the character for so long in publishing, and it's taken for so long for him to cross over to live action, that we've all kind of got this mindset as to how Thrawn should look, and unachievable by putting an actor in that role. Doesn't matter what actor it is, unachievable. He would have had to CGI the character in order to give him the kind of gaunt, kind of elongated kind of look that we're kind of familiar with, I guess, from art.
Yeah, I mean, that is a problem, isn't it? I mean, I was just trying to think, is there any other character? I mean, possibly maybe Mara Jade, but even then, like we had Shannon, what's her face? Portrayed
for the
trading card versions of
cards,
way back in the day. So maybe not, but yeah, it probably is. Yeah, other than Waru, I would imagine probably just Thrawn. He's probably one of the few characters. And like you said, there has been different depictions in Dark Horse comics and stuff like that as well. But they all have a similar kind of aesthetic, really. I think on some description, So yeah, but interesting. They went with the voice actor, so they must have really thought that he could deliver, and they were confident with the actors. So fair play to him, I guess. So.
Yeah. And ending the show, talking of actors, ongoing strike at the moment, obviously across all of Hollywood, and we're maybe at the tail end of it. The studios have gone to SAG-AFTRA, so the union that are on strike, with what they say is their last, best and final offer, which in my history of doing business means that there's probably 3 offers to come after that. But it's kind of like, this is the let's get serious people and get an agreement kind of is really what they're saying. They've responded after a great delay to SAG-AFTRA's proposal. SAG-AFTRA at this point in time are sitting back and looking at what the studios have come back with as this proposal, and it's kind of assumed that tomorrow that we're going to get some kind of decision, or enter what I think would be a period of quite intense negotiations over the next few days. Is kind of where I think it's going to go. But what do I know? Your take on it? Are we at the end of this? Are we at the end of this strike?
I mean, it will be great because we're starting to look down the abyss. That's going to be the 2024 release calendar for both cinema and also streaming. But also, it's just this weird thing that, like, I think really since about June or July, everybody seemed to kind of put this kind of like this imaginary deadline that it was going to be Christmas, that it was all going to be wrapped up by. So we're getting close to Christmas, so maybe
I kind of had a theory that they needed to have an agreement by the end of November, and if they did, that would mean that productions could start in January.
Precisely.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've had in my head. And you've probably gotten to the point where they've thought, right, we've reached the start of November, we need to get serious here if we want to be open back up in January. They're calling it their last offer. It's not going to be. It's just like, this is our entrance. We're now serious. This is where we've got into. We need to really get this deal struck in the next week for it to go out to approval. And if we get all the approvals back by the end of the month, then we can get motoring again next year and just call this year a write-off. Although I'm sure there'll be some people who'll want to pull together very quickly some Christmas specials and the like, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you think that at the moment in, like, the creative industry in the UK, I think 2/3 are not employed at the moment. Currently, they're not on projects. There's a lot of people, not only the bright and the bold and the beautiful who are actually in front of the cameras, but it's everybody else behind the cameras that it's really affecting.
And they're the ones that aren't going to benefit at all from the deal one way or the other. They're going to be same terms as they've always had. And,
yeah, exactly. But it's the sooner they can wrap this up, the better, I think. But also at the same time, I think it had to be done. I think they needed to start to kind of like call into account, these streaming services that basically run away with, like, their own terms and conditions. I think the fact that
you kind of got to the point where the streaming services have put themselves in a corner where we're buying a production from a studio, so we're paying the studio X fixed price and X fixed residual. It's up to the studio to then compensate you as writer, director, actor. And it's kind of legally okay, but morally
not really.
Not particularly, because if you're agreeing something fixed, which all the streamers were doing, because they were in this idea of, we don't know what's going to be a success or not, whether our platform's going to succeed or not. So you can understand from them wanting to fix costs. But if a series blows up and becomes hugely popular, why is that actor not benefiting
Yeah,
is
exactly.
the problem. And great example this past week. Obviously, we lost Matthew Perry, Friends. Friends actors still picking up 25 million a year in residuals from the success of the show.
I watched 4 episodes today on Paramount.
Yep.
Paramount Plus or whatever it was, whilst I was making lunch for the week. So yeah, I mean, it's on. It's probably
Yeah,
on at least somewhere in the world.
yeah, and they're
And
earning in residuals more than what actors
yeah,
employed in full-time series are earning.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the difference, and that's how the industry's pivoted and changed under sort of streaming. I don't think, I haven't seen the deal, so it's hard to comment, but I don't think this is going to resolve the industry's problem. The whole issue of residuals remains a problem, but it's going to buy another few years of negotiations. There needs to be a seismic change in how the industry operates, I think. And this is maybe moving in the right direction, but not quite there yet. But
No,
proof will
exactly.
be in the detail.
I think we're one step closer to something that's going to be fairer for all, or at least fairer for some anyway. So,
Yep.
but then there's so many streaming services out there at the moment. I think we're at kind of almost like maximum capacity when it comes to streaming services. I don't think there's many more you could really kind of create.
No.
Now we've got.
I really think you're going to start seeing them reduced in number.
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and bundled into over the top packages. I kind of think. I understand the WWE product, having done work for them in the past, and obviously they're now bundled into Peacock rather than being their own separate service in America. Still an independent service in the UK. But you can start seeing people that have created their own streaming services bundle into other packages, and it being a big icon. Like on Disney Plus, you've got Star Wars, you've got Marvel, whatever. You can quite happily see something else getting added to that Disney don't necessarily own, but makes sense for them to have it as part of their.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what even Sky does, really, in some respects.
With Netflix,
I pay Netflix and that through my Sky subscription, whatever that is. But also, you think about like the likes of maybe something like Lionsgate, who've got their own services. Like, how often do you go, I really want to watch a Lionsgate film? You kind of want to, I mean, most people don't know who Lionsgate are as a distributor and a production company and that. So therefore, to then have your own service and have to be able to like maintain that service must cost a lot. And then you've got to kind of fill it with content. So it's a big risk, and the things what we don't want is them to kind of go belly up and for the bubble to burst. So hopefully,
So hopefully this time next week we'll have some clearer news on where we are in the strike. We'll have some kind of roadmap to the future, hopefully.
Yeah.
And it could then get quite exciting over the next few months as projects start to get announced, I guess, because at the moment we're in this kind of zone where projects are kind of getting shut down, and the rumours of a lot of things not restarting. They're bubbling away there, but nobody's talking to the media.
Yeah, well, this is it. This is what happened like the last time, wasn't it? The writer's strike, shows got cancelled and weren't picked up. So do you think, very quickly, do you think that the success of Ahsoka was hampered or affected by the lack of publicity?
Definitely hampered. And I think it's a case for every TV show. Now, if you can't have the 2-minute explainer clip with a writer or a director or an actor providing context to what's happening each week, I think it has a big negative impact on what you consume now. I watched Ahsoka, and it's probably because I don't watch the animation, but I enjoyed the baddie characters, if I'll call them that, in Ahsoka more. And it's because they had no backstory. Everything I learned about them was part of the show. So characters like Ahsoka, and especially Ahsoka as the lead character in the show, I had no attachment to at all during the show. There was nothing in the show that made me like that character or want to root for that character. I think they did better with someone like Sabine, who had a slower, longer build-up in a story. But I think the same for Ezra. A lot of people love the character Ezra. Meant really nothing to me. So a lot of that character's involvements in it, I didn't buy into. I think if I'd saw a lot more promotion interviews with the people behind those characters, then I might have cared a little bit more.
Really, the big criticism of Sabine, like from Star Wars Rebels, there's a character that didn't really have much character development over the 4 series. So then actually coming into this, and they've really developed her, I felt a lot more attachment to her. Where
I'm going to get back in any second. Or if not, no, I've lost you completely. It's gone silent.
Oh no.
Oh no, there we go.
No.
You're back.
Yay.
The technical problems, the bugs are still
I'm
here.
never going to say on GMT, not repeating it. So
yeah. I think this is a sign to end the broadcast. We've gone through all of these, just about, had various sound issues, problems at the start, but back. We're still here. We'll be back next week of your playing Mr. Newbold in the hot seat. And he doesn't know it yet, but we're going to be doing a deep dive into Ahsoka. Just for so I haven't done a deep dive into Ahsoka episode 8 yet, so I'm going to be doing that with Mr. Newbold next week, as well as all the news from Star Wars this coming week. And we'll see what that's going to be. Will there be a resolution to the ongoing strike? And we'll be able to discuss the ramifications from that as well. So Mark, thank you very much for joining me this week. And it's been great seeing you again, discussing all the week's news with you.
Friend.
Yeah. And everyone can catch you on Making Tracks as well, on Fantha Tracks Radio, on your podcast of choice. And thank you everyone for your comments and thoughts in the chat. Great having you all back. And I look forward to having a show each and every week between now and the end of the year. So we'll see you all again same time next Sunday. Night everyone.